2 is what's going to make me go faster. Toby, explain.
Basically, it's electronic gear shifting. So in each of the shifting components, it has a small motor that when you press the button, it shifts the gears. So it makes it a lot easier to change gears.
Now, one of the most anticipated events of each new season is getting to see the new race kits for 2017. Now, I couldn't think of a better place than right here in the Tour Village where we get to see these guys for the first time and maybe even try out a ride or two. Come on, Mia. Why am I doing it? It's definitely time for a drinks break. And I'm just starting. Well, there you have it, guys. The Santos Tour Down Under for 2017 has officially started now. Over the next week, I'm going to be taking the showcase on this brilliant World Tour event has to offer, so make sure you stick with me, because it's going to be a wild ride.
It's January, we're back in Australia for the start of the 2017 season. The Santos Tour Down Under. Some of the men who scored heavily here as we've gone now for 19 years as we start the 19th edition. Caleb Ewan is the sprinter possibly tonight. Who will take it out? We'll find out. He'll be up against Peter Sagan. I'm Phil Liggett, joined in commentary by Paul Sherwin, and a welcome to our viewers around the world and domestically here in Australia on Channel 9. It could not be, Paul, a better evening.
It's perfect conditions, Phil. 24 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Fahrenheit for this 31-mile dash. 50 kilometres pretty much flat around downtown Adelaide. And Adelaide this evening, with that beautiful sunset going down, is bathed in sunshine, really, to celebrate this great bike race.
Well, there is the CBD district of the city of Adelaide, where only literally half a mile or a kilometre outside of the city for this opening race. The People's Choice Classic. It's 50.6 kilometres, about 32 miles, 22 laps of a 2.3 mile circuit. And here now we can take you right down onto the circuit itself.
Pretty much based around, as we see, the east end. It's 50.6 kilometres. It's 22 laps of a 2.3 kilometre circuit, starting in Wakefield Road, heading into De Guettville Terrace, down Bartles Road, Hutt Street, and then into the finishing straight. Riders ripping around there 22 times. It should take them, Phil, just a very little shade over 1 hour of racing.
And there they are, 133 riders, 19 teams, 18 of them are World Tour teams. The one team allowed in this race is a national team sponsored by the University of South Australia, and always has been. Race is just rolled away. We're on lap number 1. We'll see a few sprints on laps 5, 10, 15 and 20. This is a one-off race. It's not part of the Santos Tour Down Under. That's because of international rules. That race will get underway on Tuesday through Sunday. Last year, Paul, it was Caleb Ewan who started off a perfect week of racing by taking this out. But now he faces men like Peter Sagan.
Well, we talk about the big go together between those two riders, but Phil, there are a lot more very fast riders in this race. Nikias Arndt from Germany, Danny Van Poppel from Team Sky, they won this race in the past as well. Ben Swift riding for a new team from the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, and he'll also be looking for a victory.
And for all you cycling enthusiasts around the world, this is the first major race of the season. You'll see lots of different jersey design, new colours, new co-sponsors, new indeed main sponsors as we settle into the year. Nathan Haas looks as though he's got himself out on the front at the moment. As you can see, Adam Hansen, number 3 in line. Just looking at everybody, this amazing man has completed and finished the last 16 Grand Tours he's ridden, which is a record.
Amazing. I don't know really where he gets all of his enthusiasm from. There'll be a lot of attentive riders over these first few laps, just trying to make sure who gets into the early breakaways. This race has never seen a breakaway succeed since it was first introduced into this bike race, and over the last 5 years it's only been won by one rider from Australia. In the other 4 years it was won by riders from Germany, Marcel Kittel and the great Andre Greipel.
Now, just to tell you that this is the normal course we ride. It's 2.3 kilometres, but because of construction, they're building a tunnel on the area where the finish was, or used to be. We've made what is believed to be a permanent change now into Wakefield Street for the start and finish. It's a tricky finish, Paul, because it's downhill and then kicks to the line.
In fact, once one or two people had a quick look at the new finishing line, Phil. They actually made telephone calls back to the team mechanics to say, look, we need bigger gears on because it is slightly downhill, and I think we may well see speeds approaching 70 to 75 kilometres an hour as they charge up to the finishing line, but there's still an awful long way to go. We're just completing the end of lap number 1.
And it's the team of Dimension Data, the South African team, which carries Australians and American riders on its squad, now beginning to settle down here. It looks as though Adam Hansen is trying to reach across here to pick up Nathan Haas to get 2 riders clear as we head out onto lap number 2.
I had a quick chat with Tyler Farrar just before the start, and they said they were going to try and get their man Mark Renshaw up, and he's no stranger to winning this circuit race here. He won it back in 2007, so it's interesting to see that already Dimension Data have got themselves a little bit of an acceleration at the front just to try and pick up the speed, and that's to try and discourage any breakaways forming in these early opening laps.
Well, the Women's Tour, which is a 4-day affair this year as well, bringing together quite a lot of the world's best women riders, has just been taken out on stage 2 by Kirsten Wild, the Dutch woman who was second in the World Championships last year. And she was moved up the overall a little bit, but there's no time bonuses in the women's race. They've still got in the hot seat in the blue leaders jersey there Amanda Spratt, who broke away on yesterday's stage and won on her own.
Well, the rider from Team Sky there, just slowing down into third position, and now I would have thought they would have a very good chance of getting victory this afternoon with Danny Van Poppel, but in fact one of their riders not signing in before the start, and that's Owen Dool, the Olympic champion from the Team Pursuit. He has had a stomach bug overnight, so that will weaken their lead-out train, and Ian Stannard, who was reportedly ill yesterday, has signed in to participate tonight. That won't prevent, of course, Owen Dool from getting better and recovering and participating in the Santos Tour Down Under once that starts in earnest on Tuesday night.
At the back of the peloton, Lachlan Morton here, another Australian now breaking into the World Tour. He's a remarkable rider. He raced for Jelly Belly in the States all last year and the years before, where he won, amongst other races, the Tour of Utah, and he's got his big chance now to really shine on the World Tour squad. Right out on the front, it looks to me as though it might be Yukiya Arashiro, the Japanese member of the new team, which has now been formed in Bahrain. It's the Bahrain Merida Pro Cycling Team. First time we've seen the colours in front of our lenses.
Yes, they've got some interesting riders. In fact, Giovanni Visconti, if we cast our minds back to this circuit race around here, it wasn't a lot of fun for him when he rode for the Movistar squad, because he actually crashed in this opening day of racing and fractured his pelvis, and putting a very damp start to his early season.
Well, we can expect a fast race here, heading up towards 50 kilometres an hour average for the hour of racing here. For our American viewers, that's around about 31 miles an hour. And we expect this. Everybody loosening off the legs. There's no doubt about the super star of the race. It is the rock star, they're calling him here, Peter Sagan. He's seen all the wild animals now of Australia. Now he's going to show us what a wild man he is when he races. Average speed, Paul, got off to a good start. A bit slow, 26.
26 kilometres an hour, I think that might be a little bit slow.
That. I could manage that. Anyway, lap 3 of 22.
Well, a little flurry of attack now, and it's never a surprise really to see the team from UniSA coming up towards the front. These are the new colours of the United Arab Emirates team on the front as well. A number of new combinations of jerseys getting themselves their first little airing. We're now on lap number 3.
Home to 1.2 million people, Adelaide is on Lonely Planet's top 5 regions to visit this year. Founded in 1836 by Colonel Light, his plan for a beautiful city surrounded by parklands has evolved to see elegant 19th century sandstone architecture stand opposite edgy bohemian laneways. It's also surrounded by some of the most accessible wine country any capital city has to offer, and is lined to the west by exquisite white sandy beaches, perfectly positioned to watch the evening sunset. Back with the action here now. We're on lap 4 and 2 riders got away on lap 3. Ben O'Connor, Will Clark, both newcomers to the World Tour and both very anxious to make an impression, and both Australian.
I think they'll be given a little bit of freedom now, Phil, because it's really once we get down to the last 10 to 15 kilometres or the last 10 miles of racing that we'll really start to see this speed get picked up by the riders in the main field. But everybody knows, I think, that the big responsibility is going to be on the shoulders of the riders in that dark blue jersey with a green stripe around the middle, Orica Scott. It's a team of Simon Gerrans, but more importantly here in this Criterium race around Adelaide, it's responsibility for Caleb Ewan, who tonight, by the way, is wearing the National Criterion Champions jersey of Australia.
Will Clark, they call him the horse. You can see he's a little bit bigger than the slight build of Ben. He had 5 victories last year when he rode in the red jerseys of Drapac, and Drapac are also part sponsorship of the World Tour team now in Cannondale. They tucked in nicely, looking pretty strong. He started off well with the prologue time trial win in Melbourne in the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Well, there's the little rise you can see as we got the bell that time. So next time around there is points in the Subaru Sprint competition, and this is all new territory, particularly for Ben O'Connor in black.
Well, the gap on the finish line just stopped the clock at 15 seconds, so that corresponds to around about 250 metres, and they will try and keep these two riders in their sights for as much as possible, and they won't be too concerned in this breakaway situation until it starts to get up to the point of 30 to 45 seconds. And the fact is that having a 2-man breakaway, they'll feel quite comfortable that they can pull it all back together. 133 riders in the main field. Well, there's 131 right in the middle of the screen there.
That's right, 2 up front. 19 teams, 18 of course the World Tour circuit. It's the equivalent of the Formula 1 circuit now, the World Tour. They grab points here from next Tuesday onwards in the World Tour circuit, and all of the best teams in the world must take part in this opening World Tour race, which begins on Tuesday with the Santos Tour Down Under 6-day race, and a great course this year, and I hope you'll follow it with us now all the way through to the finish next Sunday. This is what we love to call the hors d'oeuvre. The man in the centre of our picture in the dark blue is Damien Howson, and he'll be the workhorse now. They'll try and keep Caleb Ewan safe and away from problems and try and unleash him on the very last lap. Nice crowd assembled, but it's turned out to be a beautiful day in Adelaide. Not too hot. It's high summer here, and ever since this race was organised back in 1999, the fears was the riders would not come because of the heat. But they've been so lucky, Paul. This is a perfect day.
And it looks like it's going to be a perfect week of racing with a possible high of just inside 30 degrees Celsius, which is just tickling at 85 degrees Fahrenheit. But for the rest of the week, between 24 and 25 degrees Celsius, which I think is ideal racing conditions. You can see just to the right-hand side, just sweeping around that corner there. In fact, it's the Orica Scott team doing all of the pacemaking, just trying to control affairs, but never very far behind them. You've got the black and white jerseys, and that is the new team Sunweb. They will be looking after Nikias Arndt, who is a very fast sprinter and a winner of the final stage of the Giro d'Italia.
Serious looking concentration on some of the faces here of Orica Scott, new co-sponsor for the Orica squad this year with Scott Bicycle. to Will Clark and Jeremy Maison. You can see why they call, affably so by the way, Will Clark the horse. He's a very strong bike rider.
Yes, and Maison, the rider you mentioned a little earlier, Phil, from FDJ, Française des Jeux, that's a team that's been looked after for many, many years by Marc Madiot, the Frenchman who won Paris-Roubaix on 2 occasions, and a man who still has an incredible passion for developing French riders and taking them up to the level of international cycling. But those 2 riders caught in no man's land, they've got the main field now pretty much on their tails, but the gap between the lone leader is stretched out now to 40 seconds.
That's right, that's a nice little lead for Ben O'Connor. I don't think they're going to show this youngster too much of respect. They're going to let him fry in the evening heat here in Adelaide and let him have his moment too, showing off his colours of his new team. Lovely crowd to cheer them all of the way, and they're trying. They've actually brought back now Maison and Clark, having a little bit of a reshuffle here.
So it's lap 7 now of 22, where we've got a situation where there's just one lone leader off the front end of this main field, and you can still see that dark blue jersey of Orica Scott just trying to keep a sense of control at the front end of the main field, and always hovering around. Over on the left hand side, the black and white jerseys of the new Sunweb squad with Simon Geschke at the front there. You can't miss him. He's the rider with the full set beard, and they, as I said, Phil, I'm pretty sure are looking after the interests of Nikias Arndt here this afternoon.
Well, Nathan Haas has got himself into the mix in that little chasing group of 2. Very active. He's not going to help the breakaway from Lotto, I don't think, too much, because his teammate is out in front, Ben O'Connor. But I know that Nathan is sitting on some very good form. Down the laneways of Adelaide city centre, resurgence of small bars is taking place, and they're adding new vigour to the city's nightlife. From designer brews to wine straight out of the barrel. If you really want to experience the heart of Adelaide, this is where you will find some of its real personality.
Well, the personality in this bike race is on the shoulders of Ben O'Connor of Dimension Data, who stretched his advantage up to almost 40 seconds. He's keeping his gearing down nice and low. He doesn't want to push too big a gear for many of these riders, Phil. It's their first real turning the pedals in anger this year, but a lot of riders have come down to South Australia more than a week before the start of this race for the People's Classic, the race which is 50 kilometres long, 31 miles of racing, and we expect it to finish in around about an hour or 60 minutes.
Well, there's a very angry peloton there now for some 130 bike riders as we pick up the lone leader here, the youngster on Dimension Data. There'll be no Tour de France for him this year. He's too young for the team. They're going to break him in nice and easily. He's chosen to make it a hard evening out in Adelaide. We're on to lap 8 of 22 already, one might say, as Will Clark is the man credited with the first sprint win. We'll see how he gets on in the second one.
But it's still very much Orica Scott on the front, and making sure that that breakaway doesn't get itself too far established. And as we can see just over to the right hand side of the Team Uni SA in the Australian colours there, the team which is always the animator when we go down to the Santos Tour Down Under.
Nice to see Lars back on the attack as well, one of the most experienced members of the Lotto Soudal team, and he had a pretty solid season last year. Turned pro, I can't believe this, was back in 2003, the team in his home country of Denmark, and he's been with Lotto in some form or other really since 2012. Always likes to get on with his racing.
A funny feeling, Phil, it might just be his birthday today as well, because he turns 36 on the 16th of January, so he's probably pretty happy to be out there.
Yeah, well, that's tomorrow. It depends on what part of the world you're in, of course. Because we are right in the bottom in South Australia, the bottom state of the big continent of Australia. This is Lars here now. He's had some brilliant rides in his life. He's ridden 16 Grand Tours, this man. The Grand Tours, by the way, are the tours of France, Italy and Spain. The 3-week races.
Nathan Haas at the back there, wearing number 52. He sported some pretty good form in the early part of this year, and I think he'd be quite happy to be riding alongside Lars Bak. And you can see the peloton, once we get into those long straightaways, they spread out all the way across the road, and that's always an indication to a bike rider that the pressure is not really on in the organisation of the chase.
Nathan was, believe it or not, pretty disappointed just over a week ago in Ballarat and Buninyong in Victoria, which is a rival state, but that's where they hold the Mars National title races of Australia, and he got the bronze medal. Great result? No. He was so close to winning the gold. He was quite upset about that. But for everybody else, we thought it was a pretty cool ride. And Nathan's sitting on good form, and I think he's going to be a real threat when we get underway on Tuesday with the Santos Tour Down Under. This is what it's like to sit near the leader, as he's the first to hear all the shout of what is again another crowd of tens of thousands of people. This race has caught the imagination of the South Australians. It's also brought in all the interstaters and people from other countries, which is the name of the game. It's a big money spinner for the economy now of Australia, particularly Adelaide, of course.
It's an interesting development to have Nathan Haas getting onto the wheel of Lars Bak, because he's a teammate of Ben O'Connor, who's in that leading group. He's not collaborating at the moment, but if he starts to feel that Lars Bak is closing down on his teammate, he might start to work with him, and then Team Dimension Days will have two riders at the front of this race.
But he's playing the game at the moment. He's playing the policeman. He's not helping Lars Bak at all. So it's been left to Astana to make a move. Astana carrying on their team here. A former winner in Luis Leon Sanchez, who, when I asked him last night at the team presentation, was he going to try and win again, he certainly never said no.
He didn't, and he loves this race, but it was a long time ago that he came the winner. He's actually finished in second place on 2 occasions, and I'm at a little bit of a surprised to figure out who these guys are actually working for from Team Astana. I think maybe more than anything else, they're trying to whip up the interest in the organisation. There's Peter Sagan right in the middle in the World Champions jersey. He played down his chances in this opening event, and I spoke to his team manager just before the start, and he said no, Peter Sagan is not going to try anything this evening because he wants to make sure that he just starts to get his pedal race going round once we go into the Santos Tour Down Under. But he's a kind of rider that if presented with a chance to get the victory, he will take it.
Swinging off the front there and dropping back from Foncé de Jeu, Johan Le Bon. Everybody looking all willing to keep the pace nice and steady, but not ready yet to reel in the breakaways or break away. As Ben O'Connor looks as though he's going to hold on for the 5 laps bridge between the 2 sprints. That will give him the lead in that competition.
The big lad on the front there for Orica Scott is Damien Howson, right on his wheel, the diminutive figure of Esteban Chavez. But you can now start to see a lot more interest and keenness in organising the pacemaking behind the lone leader.
Looks like Michael Valgren of Astana here, trying to get things moving. No shortage of enthusiasm, that's for sure. The days they spent riding to get rid of the jet lag. There's the bell for the second sprint, not for the last lap, by the way. This will be the end of lap number 10 of 22. Sun's starting to drop down now. The shadows are getting longer, and it can make the race quite difficult down the back side of the course because of the angle of the sun. The downhill approach and then the slight rise, which brings them up here to the line. Quite big time gaps here forming now. The 32-second Anthony Roux, Nathan Haas, and I saw Damien Howson there going through in 3rd place.
And it's one of those sprints that you're really going to have to make your effort at the right time, and a number of riders, as I said a little earlier, Phil, have taken the option of putting a slightly larger chainring on the front so they can actually pick up the pace going downhill, and then they will hope that in that final little kick up, and it's a final kick up of around about 150 meters to the line, they can keep that impetus going.
little sweeper there. If the riders go straight on, they would go right downtown in Adelaide and off towards the famous cricket oval there. And that's where we finish next Sunday with the last stage of the Santos Tour Down Under, which gets underway on Tuesday. Day off for official reasons tomorrow, and the race starts Tuesday. And on Wednesday we have a very difficult course for the riders, which could be pretty decisive. Now the crowd want to get round this young lad because he's putting on a big display. He's showing to his team wasn't a bad decision to sign him up. He's a man for the future.
He is, and he's stretched the advantage to a maximum of 40 seconds, but now we've started to get to the more important phase of this race, and it's hovering at around about half a minute, and that puts it around about 500 meters, the physical difference between the two. They're right to the front in the second row there. You can see the white jersey with the rainbow stripes around the middle, big smile all over his face, and in fact already Peter Sagan, Phil, has been pulling wheelies out to downtown Adelaide to just impress the crowd. I mean, that guy, he really is phenomenal.
Yes, and so far we haven't seen the world champion. You can pick him out, white jersey, the rainbow bands around it. He's oh, we can see him now taking a drink right in the front of our picture there. As this man comes round to collect the points, second last time, it'll be first this time for Ben O'Connor. Will Clark misjudged this young man because he went back to the pack thinking they wouldn't survive another 5 laps out front, but they have. Just 21 years of age. Last year he had a great season. That's what tempted the South African team to sign him up. He won the New Zealand Cycle Classic stage race, and he finished 3rd overall in the Tour of Taiwan as well. Just checking where he is.
Well, he's checking where he is, and this is the point when you're in a breakaway on your own, when you're starting to think, well, was this really a good idea? Because you've got to keep the pressure going, especially when you're holding on to a half a minute advantage. But it's now at the point early on in a season like this that the legs are starting to say, please stop.
Teammate there as he comes into camera with a slight beard, Nathan Haas, doing his job to stop everybody. It's Gregor Mühlberg who's gone through there, Damien Howson, and the gap 28 seconds, so they pull back 4 seconds on him that lap. That's okay, he's getting his points out there. He could be on the podium and win a prize later on, as they now regroup here and just decide what to do with the leader, Ben O'Connor. Here he is out onto lap number 11, Ben O'Connor. Look, nobody's fooling anybody here, Paul. They will catch him, won't they?
They certainly will, and in fact you can start to see a little bit more serious organisation coming up the front end of that peloton. It's been pretty much one team that's been happy to do that pacemaking. It's the dark blue and green jerseys of Orica Scott, and that jersey is so very reminiscent of the Movistar jersey. And it gets a little bit complicated sometimes when you look at that. They know that this young man will start to weaken a little bit in the last 10 minutes of the race, and they're judging their point of acceleration. They hope to try and catch him with about 5 or 6 laps to go, and this is a nice situation for Orica Scott currently, because they know that having one rider clear, it nullifies the attacks. But I do take note that the Bora team, the team of the world champion, are doing some serious pacemaking on the front. Now, is that going to be for Peter Sagan, or is it going to be for Sam Bennett? Because Sam Bennett from Ireland is also a very good sprinter at the end of a short race like this.
Well, Peter will either say it's for you, or you be the last man to take me to the finish, and we'll go head to head with Caleb Ewan, maybe.
And I'll throw another name in there for the Bora Hansgrohe team, Phil, as well. The other Australian, Jay McCarthy, who really shone in this race last year.
And still Gregor Mühlberg of the Bora team on the front there. Damien Howson holding second wheel for Orica. So the two teams with the 2 recognised sprint finishers are holding first and second. They're keeping their sprinters in with a chance of winning this race. Just on the halfway stage now. It's a very quick time too. We're going to finish this in about 63 minutes at this sort of speed.
But this is the moment now as they come into the finishing straight when they can start to judge when they need to make that effort. They've got their prey in their sights. Damien Howson at the front there for Orica Scott, once again coming forward to do his turn at the pacemaking to try and pull it all slightly back together. Esteban Chavez over on the left-hand side, keeping himself out of danger. But we keep talking about Caleb Ewan, and I think the Sunweb squad tonight, Phil, in that new black and white strip of theirs, they've always been massed together very close to the front end of the main field, and I just have it in my gut they're going to try and get Nikias Arndt a good position. And let's not forget that 4 times in the last 5 years this race has been won by the Germans.
That's a very good
as a
point.
nation.
Yes, Marcel Kittel a couple of times, and Andre Greipel. Andre chosen not to come here this year. He holds the record of stage wins for this event.
Around that sweeper once again. This is the moment when there's a lot of chatting going on amongst the teammates to try and figure out how the legs are. As you can see Damien Howson looking over and saying who else is going to work. But there's the team I keep mentioning, Phil, over on the left-hand side in those black and white jerseys. I think, as you mentioned the other night, very resemblant of Newcastle United.
Indeed they are. They're pretty nice to pick out on television as well. Another new team, but some great familiar faces on this squad. The River Torrens is the reason Adelaide is situated where it is today and has become the heart of the city. You can ride along its famous bike trail from the CBD all the way to the ocean. The Riverbank Precinct is also the site of many festivals, plus the newly redeveloped convention centre, and now it's linked to one of Australia's premier sporting venues, the spectacular Adelaide Oval. Yes, this is the Adelaide Oval, where we'll see plenty of that when we finish the Santos Tour Down Under next Sunday. What we're watching now is the People's Choice Classic. It's the hors d'oeuvre of the week ahead.
Yep, as we keep reminding ourselves, Phil, 50 kilometres doesn't take too long.
No, I think with maybe 1:4, 1:5. It's going to be a quick race, that's for sure. And we've noted, or you noted, Paul, that Caleb Ewan, who in Ballarat won the Circuit Race Championship, again, he repeated his victory of last year. He's pulled on the champion's jersey today, which is his prerogative, because this is called a criterium race. And so he is the champion of the short circuit. So we expect that will be a little inspiration as he races for the line later.
There's confirmation, winner of a sprint number 2. Well, he's been at the front of this race for quite some time on his own now, Ben O'Connor, but his gap is starting to tumble. It's down to 22 seconds over the main field as we get a chance to look here at who is riding to the front. And there again, as I keep mentioning, over on the right-hand side, the Sunweb squad. We're looking for the world champion. There he is, number 11. And Peter Sagan looking pretty good.
Well, the man Peter Sagan, of course, world champion. He's excited to get the season off to a bang with the People's Classic.
It's different kind of the race, and for sure it's for pure sprinters and for the people who already are very good shape. I coming here, you know, from the winter, and I just getting in model, and then yeah, we will see. It's short race, and it's good for the people because it's spectacular. Like the riders always, you know, doing the laps, and you can see the riders a lot of times and very big speed, and it's good for watch.
And there he is, number 11. That was the number Stephen Roach rode in when he won the Tour de France back in 1987. Oops, a little bit of a squeeze out there by the riders who's come close. It was Laurens de Vries of Astana, 107 there.
Making his first
powder dry, isn't it?
Sorry, Phil, just making his first return to this bike race since he first came here in 2010, and on that occasion we didn't know who he was, but we did see him riding at the front of this race on the very selective stage of the old Wollonga Hill.
And we got that again. It's become a traditional penultimate day of this race over the years now. Richie Porter has won 3 times, the last 3 times in fact, but he's never won the race, so we'll see what happens this time. as I repeat, when we get underway from Tuesday with the Santos Tour Down Under. On lap 13 now of 22, and Ben O'Connor's learning the other side of the professional fence. I think right now they let you get away and they pin you back. He's not going anywhere at all. His last time gap was just 20 seconds.
Nice to see moving a little bit of their organisation to the front as well. The Bahrain Merida squad, and they've got the former Italian champion Giovanni Visconti in their squad, but Andre Sink, who we introduced the other night, the rider from the Czech Republic, he's riding his first ever major road race, having converted across to this new squad from mountain biking.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. You spoke to him yesterday, and fancy choosing this as your first bike race.
It's getting a bit more serious now. There you can see that dark green jersey across with the lime green writing across the middle. Orica Scots getting themselves nice and organised. We're into the second half of the race now, 13 laps of 22, and still I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for Ben O'Connor at the front here, Phil, because we know he's going to get caught, but the question is how long are they going to leave him out to supper in the sun that's setting down here on the city of Adelaide.
I see that Dal Impey's also moved to the front now for Orica Scott. He's the man that took over the race lead in the Tour de France from his teammate Simon Gerrans a couple of years ago now, after we started on the island of Corsica. A lot of red jerseys in the field today. This will be a commentator's nightmare. Katusha's in red, Bahrain is in red, Lotto are in red as well. This will be a toughie. Every year the teams do not get together, but they seem to finish up with very similar designs, and a lovely crowd again welcoming this race back down under.
But when you look down the squad of Orica Scott, they've got a very experienced lead-out squad, and one man who's been missing from the pacemaking at the front for Orica Scott so far is Luke Durbridge. Now I'd expect to see Luke Durbridge move up towards the front of this race, Phil, as we start to get into the final 10 laps or so. And then of course talk about a lead-out train. You've got Roger Kluger, a new signing onto Orica Scott, a man who's got a very, very good pedigree from track racing, Daryl Impey, and those will be the guys I think trying to set up the sprint victory for Caleb Ewan tonight.
I was just wondering at the riders there. They were chatting with Nathan Haas, asking him, who is this new kid up front there? How good is he? Well, Nathan won't tell them the answer to that. First big professional race for Ben O'Connor, 21 years of age, and he's put a little bit of time back into them, although officially he's 14 seconds off.
Well, it gives us a chance as well to look at the crowds that are going around this course, and I wondered with the change of the finishing line whether it would affect the crowds, because over to the end of Rundle Street, that's where the crowds always used to really assemble for the finishing line. But here, Phil, it looks as if this crowd is just about as big as it normally is, and in the past we've seen crowds tickling 80 to 90,000 people for this opening event in this week of cycling at the Santos Tour Down Under.
Well, it's a different part of the finish circuit now, and I think it's probably quite nice because they've got plenty of room to spread themselves out here. The Italian flag is flying, and the West Australian Ben O'Connor is leading the course here. He was third, and that was a big surprise, Paul, just outside of Ballarat, Bunningyong rather, the other day. He lost only to two world beating time trialists, and he finished up third in the national time trial. It was a little bit of a surprise, but Rowan Dennis was telling me he won the time trial. He says he's watched this kid come on really good.
Well, coming back to the jersey colours, Phil, I don't want to throw a spanner into the works for your call of the sprint, but there is another interesting jersey. The Trek Segafredo have also got a red and black predominant jersey. And they've got a very good sprinter coming up later on, Edward Toons.
Well, looking at the current heart rate here now, this is on the former winner Cameron Meyer, who might well do it again this time out. 142 beats per minute. He's not getting too excited, is he?
Well, that's quite comfortable for him, and that's probably the sort of heart rate that he would be tickling, Phil, when he's out on a long training ride. At 265 watts, well, he's not working too difficultly hard at the moment, and all of the riders from Team Uni SA will be feeding us back this information out on the course, and they'll give us an indication of just how tough the races would be. And you'll normally expect to see the heart rate start to creep up to 150, 160, 170 beats a minute once we get down to the last 10 or 15 kilometres.
Stage 3 and Stage 5 finish on top of very steep climbs, so there'll be plenty of action then. Right now we're being entertained by one of the latest recruits to the World Tour, and this is Ben O'Connor. They go round the top course and leave the finishing area onto Duquetteville Terrace and race down to Bartels Road. Very short circuit. We had money to raise cancer. We had quite a few thousand amateur runners on the course before the racing got underway, and they were getting around running this course, Paul, the leaders, in around 7 minutes. That was pretty quick.
And I think some of them found it rather warm. Back with the lone leader though, Ben O'Connor. He's certainly not giving up, and I think he would be quite inspired here because his gap came down to 20 seconds, and it's stretched back out now to the half-minute margin.
Yeah, I had it down at 14 at one point, and he's now gone up to 27. His last check, it looked to me as though he might be stretching it again. I keep catching sights of Nathan Haas. He's just smiling away. It's up to the rest of the boys to start chasing. Nathan can have a good finish when he wants it. Damien Howson on the left of our picture there.
And you might not recognise him, because I didn't recognise him in the hotel lobby the other day. The rider just to the front there in the red and black jersey of Trek Segafredo, well, that's Peter Stettner. He's now actually sporting a rather interesting musketeer-type beard, which is very resembling. He told me the reason he grew that was he was so fed up with the team profile pictures that stuck with him for the whole year that he wanted something special that would stick out. Well, he almost passed incognito when he walked past us the other morning.
Well, we did. we didn't realise we'd walked past him. Yeah. We'll see how he feels. He said he hasn't yet raced in anger, so he doesn't know how it will affect him when he starts sweating. So he promised to tell us next week.
But he was extremely happy to be racing here in South Australia, because he's been spending his time between Santa Rosa in California and, of course, Lake Tahoe. But unfortunately, just about 2 weeks ago, there was a 1.5 metre or 4.5 feet of snow fell in Lake Tahoe. So I think he's quite happy to be in Australia.
Yes, well, the weather here, this is the summer in Australia, of course, particularly in South Australia. It's a hot region of Australia itself. And gradually it will get warmer, I think, as we go through the week. But right now it's perfect.
The other rider, sorry, Phil, the other rider moving to the front for Trek Segafredo there is Jarlinson Pantano. And talking to Peter Stettner, he was saying he was really happy with his recovery. There's a banner indicating 7 laps to go for these riders. Peter Stettner was saying he was so happy to have recovered from that nasty accident he had in the Tour of the Basque Country back in 2015. Yes. He felt that he was starting to ride better last year through the Tour of California and then going on to the Tour de France. But he could feel an invigorated team this year with guys coming on board like Jarlinson Pantano, and of course, yet to make his debut, Alberto Contador.
Yes, he's becoming a real big team this year. Now, just take a look down the home straight, because he's on his own now. He's really pulled this out. At the end of lap number 15, he'll take the IINet sprint, and if that happens, he'll be set up for that championship at least before this race ends. Remember, it's 22 laps of 2.3 kilometres, and he's still clear. Still Damien Howson doing an awful lot of work, but take a look who's in second place now. Simon Gerrans himself, the 4-time overall winner of the Santos Tour Down Under, beaten in the recent national championship to second place, but he packs a sprint as well.
Certainly does, and as you can see now, Ben O'Connor, well, he stretched it out to half a minute, but the serious point of this race now, Phil, is starting to get wound up with that gap at just around about 500 metres. They all know they're going to put the responsibility of the pacemaking onto Orica Scott, because for me, they've got the biggest favourite for the victory tonight, and that is Caleb Ewan. And I think, as we said just to each other a little bit earlier on, it's Caleb Ewan's race to lose here this afternoon.
And that's probably what Damien Howson is thinking here. He's always the mid-term pacemaker when he's leading them to the line as a sprinter. And Howson's got off to a good start this season. He's ridden extremely well.
Well, I had got information from the team, Bora, over on the left-hand side, that Peter Sagan was not really going to try this evening. He just wanted to find his racing legs, but he's the world champion, and he wore that world champion jersey last year right at the top end of the sport. And of course, now once again, he's wearing it for the second year in a row. And if he's got the chance of getting a victory, he'll go for it.
And he's got 3 teammates right on his shoulder. They're keeping him in a little cocoon, just in case anybody touches a wheel. They don't want the world champion going out today. Looking as though it's beginning to hurt, and well, it might now for Ben O'Connor. He went away on lap number 3. We're now heading out on lap number 16. That's a long time to hold off the field. There's number 11, the world champion, proudly showing off his rainbow jersey. And I must say, last night when I interviewed Peter Sagan, he said he was surprised when he won his first world title, so he couldn't believe it when he repeated in Qatar.
He said he was very lucky, but I don't think when you go through a gap like that, which is starting to close, there's many bike riders in the world have the ability to do that, and he certainly proved that that man is pure class.
Katusha with the big K, breaking up the red squadras, which is rather useful. Out of the back, Luis Leon Sanchez. He'll be more likely to be noted later on in this race. Previous winner of this event.
What's interesting currently, Phil, is you've got 6 riders from Orica Scott pretty much riding in a line, but not on the tail of his teammates is Caleb Ewan. He wears number 6, and if you look there, you can see the 6 riders from Orica Scott, but further back, still freelancing a little bit in the middle there, wearing number 6 and wearing the National Criterium Championships jersey on his shoulders is Caleb Ewan. He's trying to conserve as much energy as possible before he starts to show his nose at the front of this race.
Team Sky, the men in black, also beginning to move up their riders now, because don't forget they have a very good sprinter in this race in Danny Van Poppel. He's the man who almost makes it. He doesn't quite get to the first place, but we'll see what he can do here. 17 laps of 22. Adelaide is the perfect place to begin your gourmet food adventure, with more than 700 restaurants, cafes, bars and pubs serving up cuisine from around the world. And for a unique experience, explore the 147-year-old Central Market, which buzzes with life all year round. With fresh food, smells and colour abounding, it's a melting pot of the city's food and culture. From the helicopter we look down on the large peloton here. They've just monitored this younger skate by Ben O'Connor. He got away on lap number 3 in the People's Choice Classic here in South Australia, and he's now on lap number 17, and those legs are pumping.
Well, to put it into a little bit of perspective, to stay off the front of a main field like this, Phil, he's got to be riding at pretty close to 48 kilometres an hour as the sun starts to go down here, making and painting a very pretty picture of downtown Adelaide. But he realises that once we get into the final few laps, the main field, they will be hurtling around here close to 55 kilometres an hour, maybe even touching 66 kilometres an hour as they drop down on that slight decline 150 metres before the finishing line.
Just starting lap 18, waiting for the peloton. The gap has been hovering at around about 30 seconds. He's been lapping in just on 3 minutes a lap for 2.3 kilometres. Simon Gerrans has taken control, followed by his teammates Hausen and Esteban Chavez. And then comes the United Arab Republic rider Langan and Luke Durbridge, another Orica Scott rider.
Finally, just over on the right-hand side, you can just spot number 6, and he's moved up there, Phil, and he's managed to get himself onto the tail of his teammates. He's behind Luke Durbridge, wearing their number 5, so they're starting to move him to the front end of the peloton, looking after their number 1 man tonight.
Well, it's nice to see Gero, as they call him here in Australia, get himself up to the front. And, you know, 4 times winner of this event. He leads a very strong Orica Scott team and is in very confident mood.
Oh, it's great. It's not a new experience to me. I've obviously won here a couple of times, but yeah, I enjoy coming to Adelaide for Tour Down Under. I think all my teammates do. All the international guys love coming out here too, so it's a good way to get the season started. Got a really complete team here, actually, with some good options. Obviously, we've got Caleb Ewan for the sprint stages, and there could be as many as 4 sprint stages, I think, in this year's race. And then with the 2 summit finishes, we've got one of the best climbers in the world in the team in Esteban Chavez. And then I'm sort of a guy that's a bit of an all-rounder that has a go at everything. And then we've got some really good support riders in the team as well.
Yes, well, he's doing his perfect job as a teammate here, as the 17 seconds lead by Ben O'Connor looks to be on the return now, as we're beginning to run out of circuits. We've caught glimpses, and you can see him right below our camera briefly there, the green and gold of the champion of the criteriums, Caleb Ewan, making sure he's in the right position, but not very far behind him is the world champion, and he's keeping an eye on things too, Peter Sagan.
And Orica Scott are not being given everything their own way, because of bumping shoulders with them nearly all of the time, as you can start to see there in the red and black jerseys after 52 minutes of racing. Phil Trek Segafredo, they've got a very good leader, Mancun de Court, and sitting on his wheel, watch out for a rider wearing number 173, Edward Toons, who had a nasty crash in the Tour de France last year. In fact, fractured one of his vertebrae. Down to 15 seconds a gap. It's tumbling.
It's time to bring him back. 12.5 kilometres still to ride. We're inside 5 laps to go to the finish. It's time to wind the fish in now, put him back in the pond, and let's see what can happen with the rest of the race. Yes, they're top professional bike riders, and the young Ben O'Connor is about to learn the ropes, and he has a wonderful career ahead of him now.
Going to get complicated on the running towards the finish with all of these new jerseys. You've got United Arab Emirates Abu Dhabi just over on the right hand side in that black and white jersey with the red sleeves. They are looking after Ben Swift, and he moved across to this team to be given the freedom to try and run out his career as a top sprinter.
I always feel Ben hasn't quite flowered as he might have done. He's sort of been trapped by the Sky team. He's just been a little bit below the level required for some of the major events, but he's a very fast finisher, and it wouldn't surprise in the least if he could cross swords with the big sprinters tonight.
Gaps now just at 5 seconds as they came through that corner, Phil, and as he looks over his shoulder, Ben O'Connor says, well, job done. They've all seen my name. They will all remember that I raced here in the People's Choice Classic, and now I'll leave it up to the big boys, the fast sprinters, to the last few laps.
Well, he's gone back into the pack, but what a breakaway. He was away for 16 of the 22 laps. Ben O'Connor, Simon Geschke comes up to the front now. Now there's a whole new urgency as we see number 54 slowly slip to the back of the race. He's got the best seat in the house to watch the sprint.
And now it's when it's so important to have confidence in your teammates, to have the confidence to let them do the pacemaking. We saw the great smile on the face of Esteban Chavez. He now is turning it around. I think that's the great thing about this Orica Scott team. They've got riders who can excel in all of the different eras of this sport. They're now probably touching in excess of 55 to 58 kilometres an hour, and no one team has got complete control of this pack.
Well, Simon Gerrans on the left. It's the bearded figure of Geschke who is on our right. He's just fallen back a little bit now, but the speed of Gerrans has really pulled this tempo up, and they're putting their sprinter in a perfect position. We're on lap number 19 of 22.
On the shoulders, though, of Orica Scott, you've got the UAE riders in the black and white jerseys looking after Ben Swift. Over on the right are the black and white jerseys again of Sunweb. They are trying to look after their man Matthias Arndt. And now, for the first time this evening, I'm all of a sudden seeing, and that was Geraint Thomas, the Welshman riding for Team Sky. Now they are looking after their sprinter, Danny Van Poppel. Lots of chatting going on board. That's Luke Rowe there looking over his shoulder, trying to find where Danny Van Poppel is. Van Poppel is the 4th rider from Team Sky there, lining it up.
And that's nice to see Sky on going to take this line down. World champion and Caleb Ewan as well taking them on here. Well, Sunweb also getting in the mix. They've got Nicholas Arndt there to try and bring them to the front. Everybody trying to reposition now. Their sprinters, 19 laps of 22. This is the bell not for the last lap. This is the end of lap 20, which is another sprint in the competition, but with a second and 2 firsts. Ben O'Connor has won that for the night.
This is the moment when you have to have nerves of steel. You've got to hold your position, especially when you go around these sweeping bends, because riders will come up alongside them. They'll try and scare you a little bit by bringing their shoulders just that little bit closer to yours, and if you have got a little bit of fear, you'll touch the brakes and you'll slip back down through that main field 10, 15, 20 places, and you'll have to find a big job to move back up towards the front. But that's Geraint Thomas on the front, looking over his shoulders.
And Ian Stannard, the big man here who kills his bike every time he sits on it. Look at him on the left of our picture. They're riding a man down tonight because they couldn't start with their rider Owen Doull, the other Welshman. There's 3 Welshmen on the Sky team here. He's not feeling too well, and they're hoping in the next 48 hours it'd be great to start the Santos Tour Down Under.
2 days ago, Ian Stannard was reportedly not very well, but when you see the power of this big man on the front there, he really knows how to dig deep for the team. Look at the face of Stannard there in first position, Geraint Thomas in second position, waiting now to try and come out of the shadow of his teammates in fourth slot there for Team Sky in those black jerseys we see all around the world now is Danny Van Poppel.
So Stannard followed by Geraint Thomas, both former British road race champions. Geraint Thomas, by the way, is the current reigning Commonwealth Games champion, but won't defend his title in Brisbane next year because it clashes with the major European classic racing season, unfortunately. So he's in second wheel there at the moment.
Funnily enough, lining up behind them, Phil, we've got UAE and Abu Dhabi, and one of the riders on that squad that they're leading out is Ben Swift, who in fact moved away from Team Sky during the winter transfer season to be alongside a team that would look after him in the sprints, and he's got his 4 former teammates right up there in front of him.
Yes, they know all about the ability of Ben Swift, and he's pulled off some big wins when he's had his chance. You still see the green and gold champions jersey of Caleb Ewan in the centre of the pack and near the front at the moment. Riders talking to each other here, all planning the next move. We're out on lap number 20 as they come through. They're not interested in the sprint points here, as Stannard pulls the picture of pain, flicks his right arm, saying, I've had enough. It's time for Geraint Thomas. And what happened there? As he now has to set the pace.
And that rider with the red jersey on his shoulders at the front there, Yarlington Pantano, 2 laps to go, and that corresponds to around about 4.5 kilometres, just around about 2.5 miles.
Yes, and they've gone through in just over 58 minutes so far, so this has been quite a quick race. And it's all been down to the effort of one man, Ben O'Connor, who recently put his name on the map with a bronze medal in the Australian Time Trial Championships. Sky taking control. How often have we seen this? The champions of the Tour de France, 4 times the winners of the Tour de France, with Chris Froome and Sir Bradley Wiggins.
But now's the moment when you have to put it all on the line. You can't relinquish your control, because if you do, very suddenly you'll get swamped.
Well, this team, they're just showing as they come through to the finishes. This is what we'll see. This is a replay for you as they continue. We're on lap 21 now. At 22, we're going to, next time we hear the bell, it'll be for real as the riders start to make their way up towards the line. Well, Katusha, the Russian squad here, they're now co-sponsored by Alpecin. They've got Angel Vicioso on the team, and possibility could produce a good sprint finish, but really they're not the team, I don't think, to mix it up today. Jose Gonzalez is the man setting the pace at the front just now. And they've rather messed up some of the team formations, and Orica is trying to get this straightened out, because they've got the white jersey just obscured at the moment, but there he is with the yellow sleeves. That is Caleb Ewan, who won this race last year with an incredible sprint finish. He won this race, and he won the opening and closing stages of the actual Santos Tour Down Under. The rainbow jersey is pretty obvious as well, and the rainbow sleeves, the white jersey of Peter Sagan. He would dearly love to take this out. He looks so cool and collected, but he's so popular with the people. He says, I race always for fun, and not just to worry about winning, for fun. And I said, did you find it was fun to win 2 world titles, Ian? Yes. That's the sort of man he is. He's an entertainer of the nth degree. A little bit of bumping and barging up there now at the front, as we're starting to see the riders from Bahrain try to come through, because that was Yukiya Arashiro of Japan. He's centre at the moment in the red jersey. They're flying all over the roads here as they continue as well. With Bell out onto the last lap. as Bahrain looks as though they've got the men organised well in that sort of darker red with the blue sleeves. Arashida is having a real rocky crossing as he goes out onto the last lap. Lap number 22, the peloton is all together. It's a circuit race. It's come down to what indeed we all expected, a big group sprint here. We started with 132 riders. Poor old Owen Doull, we hope gets better for the next 48 hours for when we get underway with the Santos Tour Down Under itself. It's been a great night of entertainment on a beautiful evening. The trees hardly moving here. And it looks as though Bora still feel. Now, do you still believe it when Sagan's management said he wasn't interested in winning tonight because his team are taking him around this final lap? And this is going to be a real big push and a shove now as they continue to try and get something sorted out here. Down the straight towards the Subaru banner in the distance. That's not, of course, the finishing banner. As setting the pace just at the moment is Selig of the Bora team. He's the lead out man. Peter Sagan's getting himself a little bit of a high up the ladder there. Sam Bennett, though, maybe they are going to lead out Sam Bennett. Number 12, tucked into the wheel of Peter Sagan. Sky looking over the shoulder saying, where's Danny? Which is Danny Van Poppel. Where's the sprinter? All of the time, Orica Scott are trying to keep their man in a safe sprinting position. As they swing around the corner here, next time they come off the bend, they'll see the finish. It's a rapid downhill approach to the line, followed by a little kicker uphill, which means you must judge the sprint. Go too soon, you will fade. As they try to push on, and look at this, Peter Sagan looking for the location of Caleb Ewan. The sweeper into the left-hander now. They take it wide and quick. Some of the pacemakers swinging out of it here now. Watch for the champion's jersey of Peter Sagan, far right. Caleb Ewan is trying to break it in here onto the other side of the road. Nicholas Arndt is trying to get in onto the act as well for the Sunweb squad. Now the lead out begins for Orica Scott. They've got their man on the back wheel, but they've also got Sagan on his back wheel. Ewan goes for it now, and Sagan is taking him on. 75 metres to go. The world champion Peter Sagan breaks to the centre, but Caleb Ewan has done it with an absolutely superb result. It would be Sam Bennett gets through into second place ahead of his teammate Peter Sagan. And I'm pretty sure Bonifacio has gone up there into fourth place. And that'll be a good result for the new Bahrain Merida Pro Cycling team as well. That was the man they were trying to bring through, the Italian sprinter Bonifacio. Well, there's Sam Bennett on the left of our picture. Sagan looks like he's going to do a lap of honour. He's come up and said to Sam Bennett, all good. But the man who has confirmed himself as the man to beat in these sprints, Caleb Ewan. Let's have a look and we can show you that again, because he's already won twice this year. Small races in Williamstown in the Jayco Mitchelton Bay Classic Series, and he won the national title. And his jersey as a national champion. He's taken out this race. I make that his 27th win of his very short career. He's only now he's only not quite 22 and a half years of age yet. But the power of this man, still slavering at the mouth, waiting for his first crack at the Tour de France. When you win with that sort of length over Sam Bennett and the world champion Peter Sagan, and then Nicolo Bonifacio, you're good. So Caleb Ewan has given it an absolutely superb result today, and he should be very, very pleased with that. French journalist Jean-Francois Quenet there, who knows all of these riders inside out, trying to get amongst it down on the finishing line. This has a big international following of journalists. There's Paul Sherwin, and we'll just see if Paul. Right, Paul, it's all yours with Caleb.
Well, Caleb, we put a lot of pressure onto your shoulders to go into this first day of racing in this week here in South Australia, but you never seemed to feel it, and you came out with the goods.
Cheers, bro. Yeah, you know, also, I definitely feel the pressure, but I try to keep it pretty relaxed. So, my team backed me 100%, as you saw, and they rode straight away from when the breakaway left. And I just cruised down the back most of the day and saved my energy because I knew they had it under control, and that takes a lot of stress off me. So, without them, obviously, I couldn't have done it like that.
But it's always complicated when you get these first sprints because nobody knows which team is going to have the confidence and the power to control it. But it seemed as if the team waited until the last moment and put you in the right place.
We probably went quite early compared to a lot of the other teams, but they rode absolutely perfectly. They used the other teams towards the end when they were running out of guys, and they still delivered me perfectly in the end, with a full lead out. And I'm really happy it started off well with Roger as well. He delivered me perfectly.
What does it feel like when you see a World Champions jersey up alongside you when it comes down to a sprint like that with Peter Sagan hovering there very close by?
Yeah, it's a nice feeling because at the moment he's the best rider in the world, and to beat him in this sprint, it feels great.
Getting this first victory under the belt, what's it like now looking forward to the Santos Tour Down Under as we go forward to Tuesday?
Yeah, obviously this is a great race to build your confidence, and I sprinted quite earlier than I would have hoped, but I've just got a whole lot of confidence going to the next week of racing, and I can't wait to get started.
Congratulations, enjoy it.
Thank you.
Matt White.
Yes, indeed. A very happy Caleb Ewan. The Roger he was talking about was their new winter signing, Roger Kluge, the German rider. His team went defunct, IM Cycling, and boy, he was very grateful for the lead out he gave him. So Caleb Ewan gets the victory, 1 hour 3 minutes for over 50 kilometre racing. Sam Bennett, good to see Sam getting in the frame, and Peter Sagan, I think it was Sam he was trying to get home first. Bonifacio it was in 4th place. Ed Toohant, another good sprinter, in 5th place. Mark Renshaw on Dimension Data got up there into 6th, and looking down the list there, new pro Patrick Bevan at this level of cycling, he crossed the line in 9th, and Yasser Sutelin on Movistar in 10th place. He's the German member of the mainly Spanish squad. Well, there it is. We'll look at Peter Sagan having to look at the champion of Australia get the win. So as we look out here across the city of Adelaide, let's go and catch up now with Peter Sagan.